Good evening. The time is now 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting of the Beloit City Council to order. Mr. Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
All councilors are present.
Thank you. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. May we all stand at this time.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 is special orders of the day and announcements. Item 3A, proclamation recognizing and congratulating the Morning Star Lodge number 10 of the Free and Accepted Masons.
Vice President Keys will be reading the proclamation.
The City of Beloit official proclamation. Whereas the Morning Star Lodge number 10 of the Free Accepted Masons were chartered in Beloit in 1846 when they began meeting in a boarding house that is on what is now the northeast corner of St. Paul Avenue and State Street, across from the present location of City Hall. And whereas founders of the lodge were members of Eastern Star Lodge number 37 of Colebrook, New Hampshire, and came to Beloit in the 1830s to colonize a new community located between the confluence of the Turtle Creek and Rock River on land that later became Beloit, Wisconsin. And whereas the 5 founders were Captain John Wilson Bicknell, Dr. George Wilson Bicknell, Otis Payne Bicknell, Samuel Colley, and Leonard Hatch, to whom the Masons Lodge owes much and honors repeatedly. And whereas Masons are taught that all men are equal, and individual freedom of thought and action, as well as morality and ethics, are the concepts and ideals upon which the order is founded. And by teaching the great principles of brotherly love, relief, and truth, and through its fellowship, its compassion, and its concern, Freemasonry enables men to serve God, family, country, neighbors, and self. And whereas Masons are men of good standing and moral character, known to be leaders in the community who dedicate themselves to the service of others. And whereas members of the Morning Star Lodge number 10 have always given scholarships to graduating seniors, helping hands to our fellow men, and supported local charities and self-help organizations as needed. Now, therefore, the City Council President of the City of Beloit and the Beloit City Council does hereby recognize and congratulate the Morning Star Lodge number 10 of the Free and Accepted Masons on the celebration of their 175th anniversary in Beloit, commending them for their commitment to making our city a fair and equal place for all. Presented this 20th day of September 2021, signed by Clinton Anderson, Beloit City Council President.
There's our master right there.
Thank you.
Would you like to say?
Sure.
Hello, everybody. I don't have much to say. I'm not 175 years old. And the building that we're in is not 175 years old either. The hat is. But the virtues and the things that we stand for are much older than 175 years. Treating all men equally, being virtuous, or at least attempting to, loving one another, treating each other as if we're brothers, brotherly love, friendship, and morality, the things that live longer than 175 years. Those have been here long before any of us were even a thought. And they were here before our organization was even a thing. But 175 years is how long there have been a group of men dedicated to those virtues. And that's what we're celebrating. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Paul, did you have to say something?
About the celebration we're having?
hope the Beloit Daily News will get a picture of you all.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Well, I do have one thing to say, please. I'm Todd Purcell, Mark's younger brother. We are having a 175th celebration on Saturday at noon. Anybody interested coming down, there will be a dinner and a presentation, and the Grand Lodge of Wisconsin will also be there. So please, if you'd like to come, just come on down. There is no cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
After you. See you Saturday. It's also his birthday.
Happy birthday.
Mark and I will be the same age for that. My Irish twin.
Item 4 is public hearings. Item 4A, consideration of Resolution 2021-129, authorizing sanitary sewer and water main improvements and levying special assessments and hookup fees against benefited properties on Sherwood Drive in Beloit, Wisconsin.
I believe our city engineer is here today to present.
Yes, before you this evening is a public hearing on the engineer's report for the Sherwood Drive Utility Extension Project. Following the public hearing, you will have a final resolution authorizing the improvements and levying special assessments and hookup fees against the benefited properties. This project began when the property at 1881 Sherwood started having a failing septic system and needed to connect to city sewer. This requires an extension of city sewer. In these situations, it is typical that the city extends sewer to that property and the surrounding properties that will ultimately need it in the future. These projects are funded by special assessment. In this case, there are 13 properties that are going to need future sewer connection. 8 of them are in the town of Turtle, 5 are in the city of Beloit. The total cost of the sewer portion of this project is $241,000, which when you divide that by 13 properties, yields the assessment amount of $18,527.89. These fees are levied through the special assessment process to the city properties and will be payable as hookup fees to the properties in the town. The resolution before you sets forth how these fees are paid. It should be noted that 2 of the 13 properties out here had already been connected to city sewer in the rear and have been paying sewer bills. Sewer in the rear is no longer usable, so these properties will be required to hook up to the sewer on Sherwood. But since they've been paying sewer bills, the city is going to fund the hookup fee for these 2 properties. This is denoted on Schedule C in the engineer's report. This project also includes water main construction, which will loop a dead-end water main on Sherwood Drive. The looping provides system benefits to existing users, so this work is being funded by the water utility and not through special assessment. No assessments will be made for the water main construction. We did hold a resident meeting on Thursday, September 16th at the engineering building, where we presented the facts of the project to the residents and had a question and answer session. 10 of the 13 properties were represented at that meeting. One of the items that came from that meeting is some of the residents had requested that there be a longer time period before interest starts on the principal balance. City staff has met on this and recommends that this be extended to 180 days from the 45 days set forth in the resolution.
Thank you. This time, the public hearing is now open. What I will ask is that we please keep our comments to 5 minutes or less, and please state your home address for the record. At this time, anyone wishing to speak on item 4A may come forward at this time. Second call.
Hi, my name is Chris Newell. I'm at 1850 Sherwood. I just kind of wanted to echo what the gentleman just said, that we are in the town of Turtle, or in Turtle Township, and we just recently put a roof on our house. We spent a lot of money, and had we known if this had been public a lot sooner, we would have been able to save some different money and put it in a different place and maybe not do our roof quite yet. Now we're tapped out. Christmas is coming, and that's going to be due at 45 days from the time of the finalization of all this construction. So that's kind of why we did ask the gentleman on Thursday, if maybe there was something we could do to extend that period of time that we could have like interest-free, and it'd give us a chance to save that money and be able to pay the balance at that point in time. Also kind of wondering why, if we're paying for the improvements for all this, why we have to be annexed when we hook up to it. We're paying for all the annexation or all the construction to that point, plus we have to pay out of pocket to be connected to this sewer. So I feel like we own it. So I feel like it'd be unjust to be hooked up and then be taxed from Beloit, why we couldn't stay in the town of Turtle. So I ask you to consider that as well. Thank you.
Councilors, thank you for your time this evening. My name is Tyler Lathrop. I live at 1890 Sherwood Drive, which is a parcel in the town of Turtle. Over the past week, since we received notice from the city on Saturday, the 11th of September, I have struggled to obtain answers to the multitude of questions that have arisen regarding this project. This was the first official communication about the project, leaving us very little time to do our due diligence. In the limited amount of time that has been allotted for me to do so, I have assembled a litany of costs associated with this project above and beyond the $18,000 assessment from the city. These costs are estimated, seeing as how I've not had the proper time to contact any and all vendors that may be involved. To connect from our house to the street can cost us around $8,000. Our situation requires a grinder pump, which are only rated to last 5 years, with replacement every 5 years, around $2,000. When we are made to connect, we will be required to annex into the city, and our taxes will increase by about $2,000 a year based on similar homes in our neighborhood. When compared to being able to replace our septic tank and remaining in the town of Turtle, this project will end up costing my family an additional $65,000 over a 20-year span. I stand before a council that I did not have the opportunity to elect, and one whose decisions will have a heavy impact on me and my family's finances for years to come. I'm asking the council to recognize the incredible burden they are putting on the families in this neighborhood. Going on the second year of a devastating pandemic, you are asking families to put up $18,000 out of our pockets or begin incurring interest penalties. I'm asking the council to, at minimum, give these families a reprieve from these interest rates in total, so that we can pay your imposed assessments as we are able to. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Hello, Russ Davis, 1860 Sherwood. That was well spoken. We are in a different situation as another property on our side, a neighbor. We are one of the two properties that's already hooked up to the sewer and has been paying for decades. Previous owners have paid 7 years now. And during that time, that sewer was not maintained. We were paying for that maintenance, paying for it to be upkept, and it wasn't. So based on that, we're just generally opposed to this project and being forced to completely revamp our house to get it to come out the front, or tear up our yard and lose several trees in order to make it come out the front. Additionally, have to put in a tank with a grinder pump, as most of the properties in the areas will have to do. That's going to devalue our house considerably. We are also in the city of, or in Turtle Township, and we're very much against being annexed. We've been told we won't have to do that, but you know how that goes. Eventually, when all the neighbors next to us have been, we're going to be forced to be as well. So the devaluation of our house the loss of several trees, grinder pumps, tanks, it's all gonna add up to a lot over a course of time. And we sell the house, that's a big hit on it. It's set up to have the sewer go out the back, like our neighbors was. This is no fault of our own. This is completely on the city for not maintaining that line. I'm sure this is gonna happen anyway, but we wanna be on record as being opposed to it. Also, there's been no finalization or really any, we have no idea how this is gonna be done. No one knows yet. The estimate for the cost for our house is just a complete guess. No one has been out there to look at it really. Just someone out that came out and just looked around and said, we don't know how we're gonna do it, and they left. That's where we're at. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Debbie DeVork, and I'm from 2000 Sherwood Drive, and we're relatively new to the area. Pretty much everybody has spoken our thoughts and our ideas on this project. However, it's not that I'm personally against the project. We received notification of the project and the meeting within 2 days, 1 day prior to the meeting, and we feel overwhelmed to gather facts about how this would impact us, what the project is really about. We are told that it is because of one resident and a failing septic system. If there are alternatives, and we are told that this is a rush project, although there's a huge, thick book that's been prepared about the project. I think the residents are feeling a lot of stress and not understanding fully. I'm coming here today not understanding fully even what the costs are going to be for us personally. And like other people have, I'm going to reiterate, we don't know where the pipes are going to need to go. We have a concrete driveway, and to our best of our knowledge, that's where we're going to have the piping. But we cannot speak to a fact on that because this meeting was on Thursday for an explanation of this. And if there's any other way the rush on the project is trying to be done by Thanksgiving. And that just seems we remodeled many homes. That just seems almost unfathomable to be able to. I admire the people that think that they can get that done by then. But, I respect that you guys are listening, and if there's any way to help that other resident, we don't want to hurt somebody else, but yet maybe plan ahead. The letter said it was for the benefit of the citizens, and honestly, I'm not quite clear exactly where our benefit may be in the future, but I'm not sure where it is right now. Thank you for your time.
Would anyone else like to speak on this item?
Hi, we are at 2010 Sherwood Drive. We recently purchased the house in October, and when we bought the house, we were told that the house was connected to city sewer, and we just assumed that was all normal. And then we got this letter in the mail last week saying that we're going to get this enormous bill to connect our house to sewer, which we already are. And I think it's just a lot to take in that we have to pay for a sewer to put in when our house is already connected to the sewer, just in a different location. And I hope that can be taken into consideration for all these assessments when we already have a working system, we already have a working well. We don't need any of this to be connected.
And can we get your name for the record too, please?
Annie Pelicano.
Would anyone else like to speak on this item?
Evening, neighbors and council members. My name's Frank Stonecker. I live at 1881 Sherwood Drive Southwest. And we moved here early in the year, knowing that when we purchased the property that the septic system was failing, at which point we spoke to the city about its plans to develop a sewer system in the area, and we were informed then that that was in the long-term plans. And so we were looking forward to the ability to take advantage of that. We've been advised by a number of septic companies that are very familiar with our septic system that it is on its last legs. We've been very careful with our water use, trying to prolong the life of it in anticipation of this sewer system going in. We feel terrible about it, the costs incurred to the neighbors that are, especially in the short-term notice that's been given. And we would hope that you would consider extending beyond the 180 days that was proposed to at least a year for any payments to be made, for these assessments to be paid, and also to relieve the residents of any interest payments on those expenses. So thanks for hearing us out, and appreciate your help on this.
Would anyone else wish to speak on item 4A?
Mr. President, I had two speakers sign up regarding the Sherwood for public comment. If they wanted, Trent Austin and Kendall Nordstrom.
Hello, I live at 1865 Sherwood, and we're obviously, just like everyone else, just notified of this. My issue with everything that's going on, I understand all has to happen, but I find it hard to believe that you guys have gotten this already within the last 2 weeks, and the project's already starting. When's the project supposed to start? And when's the project supposed to start?
City.
Beginning of November, so you already got bids and everything else out for all this work to get done, and there's been no notification of anyone? Or no?
No bids yet.
So nothing's went out for bid or anything yet, huh?
This is the first official step in the process.
Okay.
And so if there are other questions that come up, we'll keep track of them and have staff respond to them after the public hearing process is over.
Okay. As far as all that goes, though, it's hard to fathom all these families to gather $18,000 in 180 days, or else you're gonna incur interest. It's something that you can't just throw at someone and expect it. It's just an unfathomable amount for most people. So I guess that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Kendall Nordstrom, 1875 Sherwood. I would just like to echo what Frank and Trent has said about $18,500 is a lot to come up with in 90 days. And I just would really, really hope that the City Council and the town of Beloit would figure out some way in which that amount of money could be, the time to pay that money could be extended, and something could be done about that 3% interest. That just seems just kind of adding insult to injury, when you have to come up with 45 days with $18,500. So that's my concern. Some of the neighbors have put a lot of money into improving their homes, to making Beloit look nice, to make that neighborhood look nice, and they just don't have, the money isn't there. The money isn't there. So please consider that, and it would be appreciated by them, I'm sure. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, were you handed another speaker form?
Not related to the public hearing.
Okay. Would anyone else wish to speak on item 4A tonight? Yes.
I'm Chuck Hunt, live at 2009 Sherwood Drive. We moved in October as well. As many of the people in this area have been new residents. We were unaware of any situation that would occur at these kind of costs especially. We understand that things may need to be improved and upgraded, and we're not really fighting that. We're just fighting the costs. Many of the expenses that have occurred or into this pricing is based on tearing up the road and then repaving the road. If the road was in poor condition, it would be torn up and taken out of the cost by the city. There's no reason for us to have to pay for that on top of the actual sewer and the water. Our equipment is working fine. In fact, the well water is better than the city water, and we just don't feel that it's necessary at this time to be charged an amount of money that we may or may never ever to hook up to. It just doesn't seem fair. And I think speaking to a few of the neighbors, we all feel the same way. And as others have said, we need to have more time. If we do have to pay for stuff, we need more time and interest-free. I think the costs could be cut down. It necessarily wouldn't have to go through the middle of the road. It could go on the side of the roads, and the road itself wouldn't even have to be touched. There's ways to do that as well. So I just think that this whole plan has been put together way too soon. There hasn't been enough thought and process into it. I respect the people that are on the committee to do it, but I think there's other ways to go about it. And with the exception of Frank and Beth having their septic, everybody else is in working condition. So if there was a way to get them some temporary reprieve for the septic purpose, that would be greatly appreciated, and maybe that would help put more time and thought into this project. Thank you.
Would anyone else wish to speak on item 4A tonight? Second call. Third call on item 4A. The public hearing is now closed. At this time, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. President, before we move forward with that motion, I would like to amend the original motion if I can, listening to some of the concerns. And I think what came out of a residents' meeting is trying to extend the time from 45 days to at least 180 days. And I would like to at least amend this portion of the resolution to increase wherever it says 45 days to 180 days for this resolution.
Okay.
Second that motion.
Okay, there's been a motion, a second, to amend it to 180 days. City Attorney, do you have a comment? Okay. It looked like you were motioning over there. Okay. And I will ask a clarifying question, though, City Attorney. So if we have an amendment now, do we have to vote on the overall item, or can we just vote on this all at one time?
I believe I heard Councilor Levy move to approve the resolution, subject to the change of making it, said 45 days, 180 days.
Correct.
Which Councilor Duncan seconded, so that you don't need anything else other than that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes,
Could we have a moment for discussion before you take the vote?
Yes, we will.
I just want to say, especially from hearing the residents who came forward this evening and expressed a lot of concern about the timing. The timing makes sense from an engineering operational matter concern. However, that big chunk of money is going to be burdensome to quite a few of the people in the neighborhood. So I definitely agree with extending the time before interest will incur.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may chime in really quick, City Manager Luther, could you explain the annexation process? Because I know we have some questions about that.
So as I believe we all understand, there is a great deal of history between the city of Beloit and Town of Turtle residents. I cannot speak to why two of the Turtle residents in this neighborhood previously had access to city sewer without having been required to annex, but that does indeed appear to be the case. So we are treating those two properties uniquely in regard to the proposed assessment to those properties given their existing connections, and that is noted on Schedule C. In regard to the other properties, the city's policy has been consistent in requiring annexation when hookups occur. And so what you will see in the staff report and supporting documentation is that those Town of Turtle residents do have the ability to wait until they hook up to our system to then be assessed those fees, pardon me, it isn't, I should not have used the word assessed, to incur those fees and then to also move forward with the annexation process when those hookups occur. That has the opportunity to provide the homes that have functional septic systems to continue to utilize them until they fail. However, as you understand, the city is upfronting the cost of the entire improvement so that we can serve the residents at 1881 Sherwood Drive. So the rationale for the time frames, et cetera, that have been used in this case and in previous cases was to help the city recoup their cost of upfronting all of those expenses on the front end, not knowing how long it may be before those septic systems fail and ultimate hookups occur. I do want to say that we are really sympathetic to the individuals who live in this neighborhood. We just became aware ourselves very recently of the failed septic system and the need to make those improvements. Because that is a public health safety issue, staff has been working diligently in order to provide a solution that can be constructed prior to winter setting in. And so we can appreciate the frustration and understanding that this needs to move quickly. But the rationale behind that is in order to provide effective sewer service to the residents that needs it before winter sets. Is there's not a good short-term solution to extending the life of that sewer any longer. So we've provided you with those scenarios. With the motion on the floor, all of the individuals who would be connecting to the sewer would have that additional time at no interest in order to make those payments. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any other questions, or if City Engineer Scott Prindeville has anything he needs to correct me on or add, he is certainly welcome as well.
Any other councilor comments and discussion?
I just wanted more, once again, the special assessments we're talking about, the 18,500, those are assessed at the time of hookup, and that may or may not be immediate. That will be down the road when septic systems fail and not before. Is that correct?
That is for the town residents, and the city engineer can speak more effectively to that question.
Okay.
I do also want to point out that while I also appreciate concerns over the interest and the desire of some to pay in full, which is fantastic, there is a 10-year period that is allowed to minimize the sticker shock, if you will, and provide a payment plan to pay back those costs over time. So as you will see, I believe this is the first time, frankly, that we have been involved in an assessment process where residents have expressed a desire to pay in full, and that is why the suggestion of the extended time frame was presented and currently is in the motion on the table. I'm going to defer to the city engineer.
Yes, everything the city manager said is correct. But just to reiterate it, city residents are getting a special assessment that needs to be paid upfront, either upfront when they get the invoice, or it rolls to taxes, to which they pay over a 10-year period in annual installments. That occurs whether they hook up or not to the sewer. Town residents get levied a hookup fee. That hookup fee just sits there against the property until the time that they hook up. That could be 2 years from now, it could be 20 years from now. At the time they connect the city sewer, they will be required to annex, and then they can either pay the principal plus interest in whole, or they can then roll it to their taxes and pay in annual installments over 10 years. I'll address a couple things that were brought up in the public hearing. There was one question about construction schedule and bid date. Should this resolution pass council today, This project will go out to bid on Wednesday of this week. That means it'll be published in the newspaper on Wednesday. The bids will be opened 15 days later, at which point it'll be put on the next council agenda for contract award. That puts us in line to start construction after we execute the contracts right around the 1st of November, with the goal of getting all the pipe in the ground and the roadway repaved by Thanksgiving. There was a mention of the cost of the road being included in this assessment. The sewer assessment is only the costs directly related to the sewer installation. So in order to install the sewer, we need to dig a trench 5 feet wide, 6 feet wide down and lay the sewer pipe. The assessment does include the cost of that pavement that's 6 feet wide directly above the sewer. We are going to repave the entire road so that we don't have a trench down the middle of it. The balance of that pavement is not part of the special assessment and will be paid out of the streets capital resurfacing projects.
And it's important to note that the special assessments happen on the town of Beloit, or the town of Turtle residents at the time they hook up, which may or may not be in the immediate future.
Hookup fee is charged to town residents at the time of hookup.
And at the time it goes to property taxes, and it can be placed on, you got 10 years of a payment plan basically rolled into their property taxes at that time too.
They will receive, town residents will receive the invoice once the project is complete. They have a choice at that point whether to pay it or to do nothing. If they pay it under the amended resolution, they would have 180 days interest-free, and they could pay it in that 180 and it would be done with. They also have the option to not pay it, in which case, under the amended resolution, interest would start accruing after 180 days, and they wouldn't be forced to pay anything until they hook up. But interest is accruing on that balance. Does that make sense?
On that balance from that day forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Counselor Forbeck.
I just wonder if you could explain, by some of the comments from the citizens, it almost sounds like they're accusing the city of, on purpose, having a bad sewer line. Can you address, you said that sewer line just is not working in the back anymore? I mean,
Yeah, so there is a sewer line behind some of these residents along the railroad tracks that was a functional sewer in the past. That sewer, somewhere along the line, got abandoned and isn't in use anymore.
okay.
We do not know when or why that happened.
So it's been a while.
And most likely, yes.
Yeah.
Those two residents have been paying sewer bills,
Okay,
which is why the city is gonna fund those two assessments.
okay.
They're still included as properties being benefited and are helping to defray the cost of the other property owners. But the city's gonna pay those two.
What are these grinding pumps that we heard about in the public hearing? What's going on with that? That's a new one on me.
So the sewer out here isn't particularly deep that we're connecting to. So some of the properties will be able to have a normal service line that goes out by gravity to the
Okay.
sewer main. But some, the sewer main is not deep enough. So they will need to install a pump that will pump their sewage up to their service line, which can then run out by gravity to the sewer pipe.
No, they're below the service line.
Yeah, so at the end of the
Homes.
pipe, down by the bend in Sherwood, those properties on the south side are really low, and the sewer main's only about 7.5 feet deep there.
Is that the same area where the old abandoned sewer line was at one time or something?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Counselor Duncan?
For that average resident that lives over there, how much of an increase would they potentially look at
An increase in what?
in their service? Because we talked about us carrying over the bills, so they would have time to pay them. But
I'm not sure I'm understanding that question.
Could the counselor kindly speak louder?
And please, counselors, if you could remember to turn on your microphones for the recording purposes. Thank you.
The increase in or the pay, because now that we get a bill, would that be based on the assessment? I guess I want to know how that works.
Are you asking when they annex, what the
Yes,
difference
when they
in their
annex.
property bill would be?
Yes.
I do not know the answer to that.
If I may, so I know this issue was raised. I think we could have a very interesting conversation about the city's tax rate compared to the town's tax rate. From my perspective, most individuals living in the town receive the full benefit of living in the city and have access to city resources similarly to other city residents. And so there is a disparity between the tax rates. But, that is, I think, a separate issue that we're not likely to resolve this evening. That said, the amount of the project has been equally divided amongst the properties. That $18,000 and change is what is being actively discussed at the moment. And again, the motion on the floor gives each of those residents the opportunity to choose to pay in full should they desire to do so within a 180-day period of being billed in order not to accrue interest. Although there would be much greater interest long-term expenses, there is also the opportunity to allow that expense to be held until a hookup. This is outside of the two city residents that would have to connect, or four, pardon me. But the others would have the choice to wait until hookup at a higher interest rate. So we were trying to take a situation that is certainly not ideal for anyone, provide the service needed to the residents with the failing septic system. The city is upfronting these costs and trying to find the most equitable way of treating both city and town residents. So as you can see, there are several unique factors involved with these properties, but we do have a need to provide appropriate sewer service to this area. The public hearing, I believe, has closed. If the council...
I wouldn't say untruths necessarily, but as far as the grinder, pump, and tank situation, I'm not aware of any properties in the area that will be able to gravity feed to a sewer that's only 7 feet deep. If you have any water in your basement at all, it's going to have to be pumped up. That's basically all the properties in the area that I'm aware of, people I've spoken to. No? You know of some that aren't? Okay, well, there've got to be few. Any service in your basement has to be pumped up, which means it all has to be pumped up. It all has to go into a holding tank. This could be alleviated by putting the sewer deeper into the street and having a lift station at the end of it. So everyone can go straight out, gravity feed, no tanks, no pumps, and the lift station lifts all that into the existing sewer. They don't want to do that for some reason, I guess because of cost. But that cost is being passed on to the residents now and in the future. So I just want to clarify that.
So you would want the cost for that, what you just suggested? I mean, that seems to me that it would be more.
No, it isn't more. They have to put a lift station. This is done all over the place, all the time. It's simply to bring one low section of sewer up to the height of the other section of sewer, or down to it. That would service all the residents and not force every other resident to install a tank and a pump. Some inside the house, some outside the house. Replacement pumps. Year after year, you're dealing with the situation. Do these tanks have to be inspected? Do they leak like septics? Do you have to test for that? All that could be alleviated by putting a lift station in.
Well, I would think that the council, I'm quite sure, does not have the knowledge to reply to that.
I think we need to defer to the city engineer and to understand that there are other areas of the city with similar topography. The way that our infrastructure improvements are funded, that would be a significantly increased cost to be dispersed among these residents. So I'm going to let the city engineer respond to that, but there is not a way to fund, in my opinion, that proposed solution.
And city engineer, before you continue, I do appreciate everybody who's here, but the public hearing is closed, so let's please refrain from having a back and forth with the council at this time. Thank you. City engineer?
Yes, I just wanted to state that it would be significantly more expensive to install a lift station in the low point of this road. We would have the cost of the lift station, and then we would still need to construct a pipe, which would become a force main, back up to the existing sewer at the corner of Emerson and Sherwood. So we're essentially laying the pipe that the gravity main is. And these projects are funded by special assessment, so if we have a significantly more expensive project, it's just going to increase the assessment to each property owner.
Thank you.
Councilor Duncan?
Are there something that can be funded under, they could potentially be funded under the ARPA funds, which we're gonna have the open hearing for coming up with? Microphone. Oh. I'm sorry. I was saying, is this something that could potentially fall under, or we could get funds, acquire funds through the ARPA project? Just wondering.
I'm going to take that one if I may. Thank you. So staff took a look at that, and because the water portion of this project, it is possible that we might be able to use ARPA funds for the looping of the water system, but we don't believe that it would be appropriate for the sanitary sewer portion of this project. Please keep in mind that those ARPA dollars are one-time dollars, and we have, limited ability to use those. We are having our first public hearing on the use of ARPA funds a week from today. And we were just entertaining the possibility on the water side in order to alleviate some of the costs associated with that section of the project. I don't think it is a sustainable solution to look at a one-time funding source for a project such as this on the sewer side. I can defer to our finance director on that as well. But we see situations like this fairly frequently within the city, given the number of islands that do exist with the township and previous developments that were built with wells and septic systems that were not connected to city sewer. If either the city engineer or the finance director have anything to add, they certainly may. But again, and in the interest of time and getting this project completed, we did not think that that would be an appropriate use on the sewer side.
Any other discussion? Councilor Preschel.
Since it's been brought up a couple times, how is the 3% interest rate determined?
The 3% is based on the state trust fund loan rate for a 10-year loan, and that's been our standard that we've used in the past.
Okay, so we're not out there gaining any benefit off of it, it's just the cost of the money we use to build the projects.
Right, through the state trust fund loan, which is what we use as our base.
I mean, normally we go with CIP and stuff like that, and we look at those rates, and they're averaging around 2 to 3 something right these days, but.
Right, so if we were to go out to bid for a sale of a bond, you would be a little bit lower than that, but you would have higher issuance costs related to a revenue bond.
Right.
So it would ultimately end up being more expensive than a state trust fund loan would be at this time.
Right, okay, I just want to make that point, if it hasn't been made already.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 5 is public comments.
This time, residents can come before the council and speak on issues that they have. Council may not act on any of these issues, but we will refer a staff person if possible. Any issue, but I got to finish my statement here and then. Yep. We please ask that you refrain from personal attacks, and we will ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Sure, no personal attacks. I just know that this wasn't seemingly a rush. There have been people in our backyard as early as February and March looking at this septic or the sewer system. People have been surveying the road as early as March of this year. When I drive back and forth to work, so this wasn't a rush. You've been working on this since March. And this is the first we're hearing of it. That's why we're aggravated. And then you can't let us rebut you guys. You just make your vote without it.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Brewer, 742 Harrison Avenue, and I'm here on behalf of the League of Women Voters with Susan Adams, the League President. And I am just presenting a response to the strategic plan of the city. So I'm going to read a statement. The Beloit League of Women Voters and the members of its Sustainability Committee are pleased to see sustainability featured prominently in the city's strategic planning. We understand this action as a logical continuation of the city's many productive and even forward-thinking eco-municipal efforts as documented on the city's website and evidenced by the appointment of a staff sustainability committee. It also follows logically on the City Council's March 15th, 2021 proclamation to achieve carbon neutrality by 2040, an action we hope will be followed by a resolution committing the city to action. We applaud that the strategic plan strikes new ground with its sustainability efforts. One example is its intention to become a green tier legacy community, which will provide the city with metrics to measure its current efforts, set targets, and track progress, expertise to help guide the city's efforts, and information about funding to support new initiatives. The League is also encouraged by ongoing sustainability initiatives in adjoining communities across a range of sectors. We encourage city government to learn from, engage with, and contribute to those initiatives. The League of Women Voters brings attention to critical issues facing voters. To that end, it studies those issues at national, state, and local levels and uses its findings to inform voters. The League invites partnerships. Democracy requires it. That is why the Beloit League established a sustainability committee and why that committee is looking forward to partnering with the city government of Beloit and other stakeholders in the city to move from recognition of the climate crisis facing the city to action. The city of Beloit is uniquely positioned to demonstrate how a community rich in diversity and citizen initiative, business investment, and educational resources can respond boldly and effectively to the challenges of climate change. Climate change will not go away. Engaging with stakeholders, however, can position Beloit to not only respond to the challenges of climate change, but lift the city to become better for all of its residents, the natural environment it occupies, and its private sector. The League of Women Voters offers itself as a resource and partner to the city of Beloit in its sustainability efforts. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, Susan Adams, President, and Elizabeth Brewer, Sustainability Committee Chair. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to have a public comment tonight? Yes.
Tia Johnson, 1621 Indian Road. Greenhouse gases trap heat and make the planet warmer. The largest source of greenhouse gas emission from human activity in the United States is from burning fossil fuels for electricity, heat, and transportation. According to the EPA, in 2019, the transportation sector generated the largest share of greenhouse gas emissions, contributing nearly 1/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions in the U.S. More than 90% of the fuel used for transportation is petroleum-based, primarily gasoline and diesel. The good news regarding transportation emissions is that in 2019, there were nearly 1.2 million electric vehicles on the road. Unfortunately, this was still less than 2% of all cars sold in the U.S. that year. According to Car and Driver, electric cars cost less to operate and maintain over the life of the vehicle, but the initial cost is greater than the cost of a similar model gas-powered vehicle. The price gap between electric and gas-powered cars is narrowing. However, in 2019, the average cost for an electric car was still $55,600. This price tag is cost prohibitive for many U.S. citizens. For example, in 2019, the per capita income for the city of Beloit was about $22,000. Beloit had a poverty rate of 23.1%. For comparison, the U.S. had a per capita income of more than $34,000 and a poverty rate of only 11.4%. These statistics from the U.S. Census Bureau underscore the financial difficulty the average Beloiter would burden just for the purchase of an electric car. I applaud the city's carbon neutral proclamation and current efforts towards this achievement. An easy way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions would be to provide free, easily accessible, and convenient public transportation for all passengers. This would reduce traffic on our streets, leave more spending monies in the residents' wallets, and decrease all our emissions. This approach to public transportation would ensure transportation for employees to get to work and for students to get to school. Nowadays, every cost-benefit analysis must have a triple bottom line: economic, social, and environmental. Free public transportation makes a positive impact to each of these. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak at this time?
Elliot Johnson, 1621 Indian Road. A few years ago, my boyfriend and I were just living off of Cranston near Robinson Elementary School. That winter, our car had maintenance problems, and we had to find other ways to get to our job, and no one was available. And we work at 4:30 in the morning, so it's pretty cold. Not wanting to inconvenience anyone early in that hour, we got dressed in our snow pants, winter coats, and walked out to work in the dark, cold night air. We walked on the sidewalks, obeyed the traffic rules for pedestrians. Nevertheless, we were pulled over by the law enforcement for walking to work early in the morning. The amount of time the officer took to run background checks on us caused us to be late for work, and each of us received points and tardies for our jobs and stuff. And we don't all work 9-to-5 jobs and stuff. So the city of Beloit should provide free public transportation around the clock. This would help those who cannot afford cars and maintenance costs to those who need rides to work or school, and it would help reduce the carbon that make climate changes worse. Thank you.
Would anyone else wish to speak at this time?
Good evening. My name is Isaac Johnson. I live at 1621 Indian Road. I'm a senior at Beloit Memorial High School. I drive to school. There are several BMHS students that live in my neighborhood. We could carpool. However, the Wisconsin laws only allow us to have one non-family passenger in the car. And some of us have before and after school activities like football or band, so it doesn't always work out. According to the school district webpage, semester bus passes are available for students at a cost of $85 per semester per student. That equals out to $170 for the whole school year. The cost to park at the BMHS parking lot is $100 for, I believe, each semester, so $200 each school year. Either way, it seems the city and the school district could be doing better at providing transportation for its residents and students. Climate change isn't going to get better until we make dramatic changes in the amount of greenhouse gases we are putting into the atmosphere. Free public transportation would benefit the residents of the city and students of Beloit School District, especially those who cannot afford the cost of cars, maintenance, and gasoline. The economic benefit would help those who are in poverty be able to have and keep jobs and to be able to get to work on time. It would help raise them out of poverty and decrease the city's high poverty rate. Free public transportation would decrease the carbon going into the air from transportation. This environmental benefit would prevent direct and indirect costs of climate change for people of my generation and future generations. Thank you.
Would anyone else wish to speak at this time? Second call. Third call. Public comment is now closed.
Mr. President, I do have one email that I received for
Yes,
public comment.
Go ahead.
This is from the Welty Environmental Center. Dear esteemed City Council members and City Manager Luther, I am writing on behalf of Welty Environmental Center. We want to commend the assembled group on its revisions to the City of Beloit strategic plan that include metrics and goals to address the issue of climate change. According to the latest Global Climate Change Assessment Report issued August 9th, 2021 by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, climate change is widespread, rapid, and intensifying. And while significant measurable damage is already occurring due to extreme weather events, forceful action and thoughtful policy can help us avoid the worst-case scenarios. Your plan identifies strategies for the city to reduce carbon emissions in its own operations, installed LED streetlights, reducing fossil fuel dependency, increasing the urban tree canopy, as well as creating opportunities for its residents to change their daily routines and reduce their carbon footprint, increased sidewalk and bike paths, electric vehicle charging stations, reduced vehicle idling. We encourage the city to continue implementing policy that further reduces its emissions and takes advantage of guidance and funding available for municipalities trying to achieve carbon neutrality. Applying to become a green tier community is an excellent step and will help the city identify grants that will support its efforts. Welty is proud to partner with the city, and whether through camps and field trips for our school-aged community members or public programs for adults, we are glad to lead educational efforts on climate change and teach strategies to mitigate and reduce fossil fuel emissions. Please continue to implement these critical policy initiatives that create a sustainable community, and thank you for including climate change considerations in this new strategic plan. Respectfully, Brenda K. Plankins.
Thank you. Now public comment is closed.
Item 6 is the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda.
Would any council member like anything removed from the consent agenda?
I would like 6A removed from the consent agenda. Under council reports, I would like to have my comments added in regard to former clerk Lori Stotler.
We have to wait till we have to take that separately.
Okay.
So 6A has been removed. Would any council member like anything else removed from the consent agenda? If not, the consent agenda consists of items 6B through 6L. Can I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Motion by Forbach, second by Preschel. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 6A, consider approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 7th, 2021.
Can I have a motion to approve?
I would like,
Motion by Levy.
Pardon me.
I would like to get a motion on the floor before we have discussion on it.
Okay.
So we have a motion by Levy. Is there a second?
a second.
Second by Preschel. Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, thank you. Counselor Duncan, are you going to speak to this point now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I just wanted, under the counselor comments from the previous meeting, I just wanted those to be added. And they were regarding the leave of our former clerk, Lori Stotler.
I actually,
Everybody was wishing her well, and I just wanted to add it in the minutes.
yeah, I would also like to include my comments that were not in there. Usually I contact the clerk before the meeting last week and tell him that, there's a concern, but I missed that, so I think it should be in our record, so.
Any other discussion? Not. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7, there are no licenses. Item 8, ordinances. Item 8A, consideration of ordinance number 3719 to create, amend, and repeal various sections of Chapter 19 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit pertaining to zoning of the medical facility uses.
Counselor Duncan?
I'm recusing myself for the reasons I have already stated.
Thank you.
And Council President, I too would like to recuse myself to be persistent with the first reading and the persistent perception of conflict of interest.
Okay. Counselor Duncan and Vice President Keys will step out of the room and recuse themselves. And then we'll have Community Development Director Julie Christensen present.
In 2020, the Planning and Building Services Division received a request to develop an ambulatory surgery center in the city of Beloit. The existing zoning ordinance does not explicitly address ambulatory surgery centers, which caused a great deal of confusion and litigation. As we got into reviewing this matter, we found that there were many other definitions missing. Just our ordinance was incomplete in regard to medical facilities. Therefore, we're proposing this ordinance, which is before you tonight. Section 1 adds a hyphen to the term quasi-public. Section 2 removes the words sanitariums and nursing homes from the list of permitted uses in PLI. Such uses are typically located in R3, R4, or commercial districts. Hospitals would continue to be allowed in the PLI district. Section 3 would update the use table by renaming the current hospital classification as medical facility. And then the table indicates whether the use is permitted, conditional, or prohibited in each district. Sections 4 through 8 make changes that are needed to move all medical facilities into one section. This includes Section 6, which outlines the characteristics of medical facilities, their accessory uses, examples, and exceptions. Sections 9 through 13 define the terms ambulatory surgery centers, hospice facilities, hospitals, and nursing homes, and it updates the community living arrangement section to include RCACs. None of those definitions are currently in the zoning ordinance. Section 14 repeals the original definition of rest home or nursing home, which was outdated. All required public notices have been posted and distributed. Staff also emailed the notice and ordinance to Tim McKevitt from the Beloit Health System and Duffy Dillon, who represents Ortho Illinois. All public comments which were received prior to Plan Commission and prior to council meeting are attached to the staff report, and a handout provided by Tim Feely at the Plan Commission is also attached. Plan Commission held a public hearing on August 18th and recommended approval of the ordinance subject to an amendment to allow medical facilities as a permitted use in C1 office and CBD 1 Central Business District Core by a vote of 4 to 3. There is a report to City Council attached which outlines their recommendation. At your last meeting, you held a public hearing and held the first reading, and this ordinance, proposed ordinance, is on your agenda for second reading tonight.
Thank you. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Preschel. Is there a second? Second by Levy. And before we get into discussion, I'd just like to say that I do agree with the amendments proposed by Plan Commission and believe that those changes are substantial, though. So I believe the public should be notified and given an opportunity to provide input. So if this motion does pass, I would like staff to prepare a follow-up ordinance for this. It's clear that through this process that the city's zoning code needs to be modernized, and I see no need to further defer that action at this time and support the ordinance as written. Further, I look forward to the Plan Commission's recommendations after a separate public hearing has been held specifically on the proposed amendments. Despite how this issue has been characterized, the city has a duty to provide zoning for all uses. So with that, is there any other discussion by council?
I would just like to say, my concerns about the lack of definition in our ordinance back in November have been addressed, and I feel comfortable with this. I don't think it changes a whole lot, and this is not about a battle between Ortho Illinois and Beloit Health Systems, and this is about being fair to every business opportunity that comes to Beloit, regardless. This is like It's just like telling Quick Trip they can't come to Beloit because our local business owner who has 6 or 8 convenience stores is upset about it. We don't do that. We never do that. We don't tell Menards to take a hike because Ace Hardware is angry about it. And I'm deeply embarrassed at the way this was characterized. I'm sorry, not embarrassed. I'm deeply upset with the way staff and the city council, et cetera, have all been characterized in this. There is nothing going on except trying to be fair to all opportunities that come to Beloit. And that's what this is about. And I think staff has mostly succeeded in that. It's been a tough road. And that's what we're here for. So that's my summary, simple as it is.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilor Blakely.
I would just like to add to what Councilor Preschel just said, that this is a matter of clarification of the existing law. It is nothing for or against any business. We have a lot of respect for the health systems involved in this discussion, but it is a matter of clarity primarily, even though it can be hard to take a vote on it. But that's my statement. Thank you.
And Councilor Forback.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I wanted to emphasize what you articulated, Clinton, that we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's here. We are noticing the amendment, what we believe is the correct way to bring the amendment forward again that was made by the Planning Commission, but for various legal and administrative reasons, we can't say right now we would make a motion to approve this zoning change with the amendments. The only reason we're not including it, it's not for any reason other than there have been mentions of litigation, and we want to make sure that this is put forward in the most proper city way, and that's what we are beginning to do right now.
Any other discussion? Councilor Levy.
I, for one, I would like to thank everyone who stepped forward at our last meeting to let your voices be heard. It's kind of like either way we go, it's kind of like a no-win. We're kind of like here. But I always appreciate when people come forward and let their voices be heard. I'm an advocate of telling people, we don't know what you're thinking unless you come forward and tell us. Sometimes when we do that, we make changes. Sometimes we stick to where we are. But I, for one, want to thank everyone who stepped forward, who contacted us, and let your voice be heard, because that's very important. Because a lot of people don't do that. We get things, we pass them, and then after the fact is when people speak up. So I wanted to just say that before we even vote on this. This is it's one of those decisions that you go, darn, I'm on council, I got to make this decision. But I can't stress enough that I think everyone has said the same thing, that I think we need to let everything go through the original process as the original ordinance did. I think we owe it to the public, and we owe it to everyone involved to make sure that once this is done and over with, whenever it is, finally, it was done correctly, and no one can come back and say, well, you forgot a step or you forgot this, because we want to make sure that we are consistent. All my years on council, the one thing I say is, let's be consistent. Let's not step out the norm and do anything different. We got to be consistent, and I think the direction that we're Lady Lisa, I'm looking at doing is adhering to that promise of being consistent in everything that we do. So those are my comments. So once again, thank everyone for your input. I greatly appreciated it. So I just wanted to put that out there before we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I just want to thank Kevin for thanking everybody for that input, because the input was valuable all the way along. It just doesn't, a lot of it didn't address what we're talking about here. And I think it's only fair that we recognize that and stop with this, That'll be a different issue for the future, and we'll have to settle that one. Maybe I'll be sitting here then, maybe I won't. But that'll be a different issue for a different time, different place, and we can have that discussion and that vote then.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8B, consideration of ordinance number 3722, amending the City of Beloit Comprehensive Plan's future land use map from single-family residential urban to neighborhood commercial for the property located at 1112 Garfield Avenue. This is a second reading.
And we'll wait for Vice President Keys and Counselor Duncan to resume, but we will also forego the second reading on this one. City Manager, did you send them a text? Yes, I am, right now. Okay, thank you. They wanted the fourth floor.
They aren't allowed to be in the next meeting because they would have been able to hear the debate next door, and so it will just take them a minute to get back to the first floor here.
They can go home and watch it on YouTube.
Alrighty.
Welcome back. Oh, no, you're fine. Item 8B, Mr. Clerk, it's been a while, so could you read the item again, please?
Item 8B is consideration of Ordinance 3722, amending the City of Beloit Comprehensive Plan's future land use map from single-family residential urban to neighborhood commercial for the property located at 1112 Garfield Avenue. This is second reading.
And just like I said previously, we'll forego the presentation from Julie Christensen, so can I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Moved by Forback, second by Levy. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 9 is appointments. The individuals to be named have been nominated for a seat on a city board, committee, or commission. Each nomination is subject to confirmation by the city council. Approval of the appointment will be accomplished by one motion unless a council member requests to take up a nomination separately, in which event the nomination will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda. We have 8 appointments tonight. The first one being the Alcohol Beverage License Control Committee, Sherry Pounds replacing Melissa Cronin to a term ending June 30, 2024. On the Park, Rec, and Conservation Advisory Commission, Elizabeth Brewer replacing Benjamin Reber to a term ending September 30th, 2024. Martrius Heiler replacing Julio Castaneda to a term ending September 30th, 2024. Devon McIntyre replacing Carl Lang to a term ending September 30th, 2024. On the Plan Commission, Mardell Jacobson replacing Jan Ruster to a term ending April 30, 2024. Traffic Review Committee, Stephen Benton to a term ending September 30, 2023. Thomas Larson to a term ending September 30, 2023. And Jeffrey Johnson replacing Robert Norder to a term ending September 30, 2022.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Preschel, second by Duncan. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Nice.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10 is councilor activities and upcoming events.
Start with Vice President Keys today.
Thank you, Council President. I have 2 reports from my committees. Just reflecting on the Appointment Review Committee, I want to thank the residents who applied and are now part of making our committees stronger, and it's just really exciting to see greater public participation with and filling these empty seats. There are a couple open vacancies yet, and I encourage people to check out the city website in order to check those out and to apply. When it comes, my other committee was Parks, Recs, and Conservation Committee. From reflecting on some highlights from the director's report, we want to just share that the splash pads have remained open a little longer than planned due to the heat, and they will be open as far as the heat lasts. And very appreciative of that and for our youth. The Senior Center continues to add more programming. The Trail Tales are currently at Eagles Ridge and Kruger Park. And the Dirty Dash was held recently and was was a success. It was a family-style run, and that option will continue into the future. There were 67 families and 283 participants. The recreation will continue as far as Golf Place has been up, and the Beloit Tide Swim will begin, adult volleyball will begin, so a lot of exciting opportunities, and that other upgrades such as the Turtle Island Bridge will be painted in the train car on Riverside Park as well. So thank you to our Parks and Rec staff for all of your hard work this summer. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Councilor Levy? No report. Councilor Blakely?
I just want to say briefly that I enjoyed participating in the Beloit Historical Society's Beloit Heritage Days last weekend. I didn't have a chance to go around to many of the exciting things I heard about, but I heard from residents who dropped by the castle, the former Presbyterian church, a great historical old building. So I got a lot of excitement. I mean, I got to hear secondarily, I got to experience it secondarily through the voices of people who had been around to some of the other events. So, hoorah, Beloit.
Councilor Duncan?
Thank you, President Anderson. First, I want to say thanks to those individuals who will be serving on our volunteer committees. I heard some new names on there tonight, and also the residents that came out to give their input. Very much appreciated. Next, as far as my council report, I attended the Wisconsin State Public Defender Board meeting, the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation Audit and Finance Committee meeting, and also the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors meeting. I want to give special thanks to Jennifer Hall, the President and CEO of GBEDC, for doing a fantastic job and keeping us on task with the many economic projects. I also want to thank Eric Miller, our Finance Director, for his presentation at the GBEDC meeting. Way to go, Eric. In addition to that, I was honored to be included in the Greater Beloit Chamber of Commerce 94th Annual Awards Dinner, along with the 2020 award recipients. I want to give a shout out to the 2020 honorees. Last year, there was no ceremony due to the pandemic. Also, congratulations to the 2021 honorees, who were as follows. Dr. Joseph Kidder received the Lawrence A. Raymer Headliner Award for this year. The Large Business of the Year went to Black Hawk Technical College. The Small Business of the Year Award was United Way Black Hawk Region. The EDDie, which is the Economic Development Award, went to Beloit Area Community Health Center. And the Paulette Christensen Ambassador of the Year was Holly Friel. The Rising Professional of the Year was Charity Wagner. And the Ken Hendricks Community Spirit Award went to Pastor Danny Evans. So congratulations again to all the honorees. The main speaker for the awards dinner was Josh Sitton, and the resounding message we heard was about growth and the importance of mentorship to make a better community. It truly takes a village. So special thanks to Amy Thurner, the Greater Beloit Chamber of Commerce, and all who were involved in making the event successful. In closing, I want to remind residents that the City of Beloit has been allocated $15.2 million from the United States Treasury as part of the American Rescue Plan Act's Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, ARPA. The first public meeting and input opportunity will be held on Monday, September 27, 2021 at 6:00 p.m. right here in the City Hall Forum. I also want to mention that the COVID hospitalizations have gone up in our southern region. There is a community COVID-19 vaccination site being provided by Beloit Area Community Health Center on Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Walk-ins are welcome, or you can call 608-361-0311 to make an appointment. There is also information posted on our City of Beloit Facebook page. I encourage our residents to please get the vaccine and take the necessary safety precautions to help the spread of this virus. And be very careful driving through the various construction zones which are going on throughout our city. For updates on those various projects, you can also go to our Facebook page or to our Beloit report. So that said, this ends my report for this evening. Thank you.
Councilor Preschel?
Well, like Sherry, I attended all 3 days of the heritage events at different places, the movie on the big lawn, and Nature at the Confluence, Big Hill Park, Beckman Mill. I hit quite a few spots. It's a very busy weekend, took a lot of pictures. Then I followed that up this last weekend at the Oktoberfest celebration in downtown Beloit. That was good to go down there and see our local band playing down there. It's been a long time. And then I stopped in at the unofficial cruise night the other night to see how that was handled by our police force and our citizens and everything. And must say that, you know, it was pretty cool. And it got a little boring after it got dark because you couldn't see anything except headlights and taillights. But during the daylight hours, it looked really good, and it looked like we had a great turnout, and our police presence there was perfect. They were getting along with everybody. They were making a good showing, and much better than the previous year. So it was good to see. It's good to get out. And so I'm looking forward to the new members on the Traffic Review Committee, so we can, been kind of busy lately there, so looking forward to that. And I do appreciate everybody contacting me, and hopefully we can get answers to your questions when you have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Forbeck.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that I attended with my darling young daughter-in-law, Nature at the Confluence talk by Therese Oldenburg on Sunday the 12th about women who actually have lived right there where the confluence is. And it's just really interesting. We talked about, not we, I listened, she talked, about the Native American women and how long of a history they had there. I mean, we're getting educated all the time. I mean, so when the Ho-Chunk talk about having a casino here, it certainly is real that they were here for centuries. And they had a very large village. And then we talked about the farmers' wives. And then it was, I certainly never knew that there was a whole, right where the confluence is now, we had Irish families moving into Beloit, and they were so hated, they couldn't live anywhere except this one small area that was right where the confluence is. So it was, it really made you realize that it's much better being a woman now than it was those years ago. So everybody should just put their head down and be thankful. So it was, it's nice to learn when you're at a city event. It was wonderful. Thank you.
And I'll go on to my report. About 2 weeks ago, I attended a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. Definitely did not participate, so I want to make that clear. At New Life International Ministries, Bishop Wiles sent me an invite and went out, and it was really great to see everybody getting involved. And they got a new basketball court out there, and it looks really nice and very impressive. We actually had a representative from Beloit PD show up too, and that was great to see that relationship building going on. So
So where was this?
at New Life International Ministries. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it was really great for the police department to be there, and I don't think Chief Sales is still here, but I wanted to give him a shout out for sending a police officer over there. I think that was really beneficial for the community to see that. I also attended the 50th celebration of Meals on Wheels in Beloit. It was at ABC Supply Stadium, and I'll say it's really great to see that stadium being used for more than baseball. It was really great for us to recognize 50 years of that organization and also share some stories from volunteers' experiences there. So definitely an enjoyable time to go out there. And lastly, I just want to thank our co-clerks over here doing a great job. I don't know, Eric, if you'd prefer to do this over budgets and bonds, but you're doing a great job so far. And that ends my report.
I'll take the budget and the bonds. Item 11 is city manager's presentation. Item 11A, consideration of resolution 2021-134, adoption of City of Beloit Strategic Plan 2021 to 2022.
City Manager Luther.
Thank you very much. I have a brief presentation this evening. I thought it might be helpful to just display for the public what we have been working on here. All right. So as you know, we held a workshop to review the city strategic plan. This evening, I just wanted to provide a quick overview of the process. Oh, helps when you turn it on. Yeah, it might be a little bit too far for that. That's all right. I'm going to summarize the process for you quickly, talk about our format, walk through our mission, our organizational values, 2 new strategic frameworks, and a quick summary of our goals. So in regard to the process, the council received a packet of information when we met at our session in July. It had a summary of all of the public input opportunities that we solicit throughout the year. We then had an opportunity to review our changing environment and the needs of our residents and look at how we can take a 5-year outlook with a current year implementation plan to help keep moving the city's efforts and momentum forward. Following adoption, the content that is approved will ultimately be formatted into a much more visually pleasing display, and that can then be shared in an electronic format and in hard copy as well. And then next summer, we'll be at it again for a 2-year cycle implementation plan. The format of the city's strategic plan is defined first by our mission. We then have our organizational goals. Again, the 2 new strategic frameworks that we are using as lenses to view our work. That is followed by 6 strategic goals that are then linked directly to at least 1 or more strategic objectives, which are specific actions needed to achieve the goal, key initiatives, means by which we can achieve the objective, and finally measured through a performance indicator. As a reminder, we have an annual publication that is distributed both in hard copy format and electronic format that provides an annual update on where we are with our strategic planning process in regards to our outcomes and indicators. The mission of the City of Beloit is to provide outstanding public service, period. That is why we exist as a local government. And when you look at our core organizational values, these 2 have evolved a bit over time. But our core organizational values are as is follows on the PowerPoint slide, and it spells Beloit. Our first organizational value is to be safe. Yes, we got creative with the use of it so we could spell Beloit. I will fully admit this. It's also that I can remember them because it spells Beloit. But safety does have to come first with all of our employees so that they can do the jobs that they need to do to then keep the public safe. E is for ethical behavior. L is for leadership at all levels. O is again to emphasize the point of outstanding public service, the purpose for which we exist. I is inclusion of diverse people and ideas. And this year we added creating a sense of belonging. And we will get into that a little further as we discuss our strategic frameworks. And T is for teamwork to creatively solve problems. Those are the internal facing organizational values that help shape how we deliver our services and how we work with one another and with the public at large. Now, in regard to strategic frameworks, for years we have talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But ultimately, those words are sometimes used interchangeably, and they each have a unique definition. And the ultimate end goal is for all individuals who live and who work here to be as individual and unique and authentic with a sense of belonging, so that there is no need to conform to one group or organization ideals, if you will, but that we can value those unique attributes that each individual brings forward. And so that is a significant addition to our organizational values, and that impacts the strategic framework from which we are really viewing all of our work and how we interact with our public. There is a great more in-depth information that is included in the strategic plan. We want to recognize and acknowledge that all human beings have bias based on their experience and viewpoints. And rather than pretending to be all-inclusive all the time, we want to recognize our vulnerability, openly acknowledge biases that may exist, and create an environment that more readily provides the opportunity for individuals as employees and individuals in the public, again, to be authentic and yet belong. The second strategic framework is something else that we have discussed in our strategic plan, and each of our goals has been to create and sustain. So sustainability has long been a core component of our strategic planning. But this year it is defined as a strategic framework that, as one of our speakers pointed out earlier this evening, is based on a three-legged stool of social, environmental, and economic well-being, and looking at how those three pieces intertwine into sustainability efforts. The definition that is included in the strategic plan is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So it is an effort to be very deliberate in how we look at environmental, economic, and social sustainability, building in very specific data sets and measurements so that we can look at our progress over time. A couple that were pointed out earlier, we're becoming one of the green tier communities, which has a great metrics of data and will be a good starting point as we begin prioritizing new projects moving forward and how we hope to have the greatest impact on our local and regional and ultimately global community. And then, quick review of the goals. We have 6 goals. In the interest of time, I did not delve into all of the objectives or measurements within those goals, but as a highlight for the public who may be watching, we have the goals of creating and sustaining safe and healthy neighborhoods, a high-performing organization, economic and residential growth, a high quality of life, high-quality infrastructure and connectivity, and enhanced communications and community engagement while maintaining a positive image. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Our sequencing this year is a little different than it has been in prior years. Due to the pandemic in 2020 that we are still living in, the council was gracious enough to kind of extend our current plan last year, as our highest priority was doing everything possible to help address the pandemic, whether that be through our vaccine clinics, through support for our emergency responders, et cetera. through redesigning how we held elections and any number of things. But this is a one-year implementation period, so we wanted to bring it before you in its final form so we can officially get started sooner rather than later. But thank you all for the collective effort. Staff is incredibly energized and excited to move forward with implementation.
Thank you, City Manager. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Levy, second by Blakely. Any discussion? Vice President Keys? Mike? Yep.
You.
There you go.
I just want to thank all the residents who have reached out throughout the process, and to the residents too who spoke to the plan today. It's absolutely critical that we have public input and feedback as we develop the city's strategic plan and throughout the year that we utilize as we develop it. And I also want to thank staff for all their work on this, including the problem solving and their responsiveness. I also just want to say that I greatly appreciate the objective measures with the initiatives and performance indicators. As we set these priorities, it really helps us show the progress that the city makes on a year-to-year or every 2-year basis. So I highly recommend everyone look at the report and those indicators and appreciate the work and effort put towards to reaching those goals. And then I'm also very excited about the frameworks and highlight these frameworks that will be applied. And we're working to apply to all the goals and kind of presenting in a way that we can integrate it in the city's work moving forward. And I'm proud and thankful for the effort put into this. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, I'll just say, thank you to staff too, and thank you to the residents, but I also want to thank the council for having a very constructive strategic planning session, several months ago. It was really great to have all of you there in that room with staff, and I think a lot of good came out of that. So thank you for everybody who took time and effort into this. So with that, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 12 is reports from boards and city officers. Item 12A, the city council may adjourn into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, sub 1, sub E, Wisconsin statutes to deliberate or negotiate the purchase of a public property, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, namely to discuss the following: the possible sale of 1534 Shore Drive, 1540 Shore Drive, and a portion of 249 Maple Avenue, and the possible sale of 3500 Eagles Ridge Drive. The council may reconvene into open session to possibly take action on the matters discussed in closed session.
And before we take that motion, I will be recusing because I am involved with the board that potentially could be impacted by one of the closed session items. So at this time, I will be stepping out of the room and letting Vice President Keys take the motion for closed session.
Can I have a motion for going into closed session? Councilor Duncan, and second with Councilor Forbeck. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. We have adjourned to closed session. This time, would the city attorney speak toward the resolution? For
Sure.
the record, please?
Just some background on the sale. The city is proposing to sell 1534, 1540 Shore Drive and 249 Maple Avenue. That's at the corner just across from the Rock Restaurant. Beloit Meals on Wheels has offered to purchase that property in order to put their headquarters there. So we have come to terms with Beloit Meals on Wheels to sell them the property for $1. They'll be taking care of all of the closing costs and all of the fees related to that transaction. And if they don't have full occupancy within 4 years, the city does have the right to repurchase the property at the purchase price. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I would ask for approval of Resolution 2021-126.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Counselor Levy and a second by Counselor Duncan. Any discussion?
Let me just say that I'm very happy that Meals on Wheels is able to pull this off, and this will be a much better facility for what they do and what they've been doing for many years. It can only make things better for them, so I'm happy to see it.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Our motion passes. And now I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Levy, second by Preschel. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned.